my expectation is if I'm trying to get to here, then here is my expectation. I'm not going to bring my expectation down to where the level I'm at right now if I'm trying to get to here.
Right.
My expectation has to be here. I have to train my body like I'm here. I have to train the way I think like I'm here because I know I want to be here. I can't give myself grace because I'm down here. No, I strive to be up here in this expectation. And while I'm there, I have to ask myself, realistically, is it tangible? Do I have the resources? Do I have the frame? Do I have the work ethic? All right, I do. So yeah, let me stay right here. Now, if you don't have the work ethic, that's what brings you down. If you don't have the work, like the ability to actually have the discipline and the resources to do it, that's what brings you down. But your mindset shouldn't bring you down.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Welcome to the Booth Review. I am your host, Brandon McAnderson, and we will recap where we've got earlier this season. We're about halfway through as we head into the bye week before a homecoming matchup with a vastly improving Houston team that has a tough defense. But let's talk about where we are right now. Kansas sits at 1-5 and losers of 5 straight. All one-score losses except TCU, and they end up losing by 11 at home, and all seemingly more painful than the last for various different reasons. Last Saturday, Kansas traveled to Tempe to face Arizona State for the first time as a member of the Big 12. The Sun Devils were hyped. They had parent weekend and they had homecoming weekend, so the stadium was nearly packed. The weather was beautiful. I will make one quick comment about the weather. It was 105 degrees. I was nervous and worried the whole time, but for whatever reason, about 5 o'clock, it's not as bad. I don't think it had any impact on the game other than I'd say some late game fatigue, but not a huge impact, not the way that I thought it was going to be. Arizona State came out hot. They ran the ball. They mixed up the pass. They ended up completing a 28-yard touchdown down the right sideline that opened up the scoring, got that 7-0 lead. Kansas down 7-0 responded in the way that they often have offensively. They're very good at putting together drives early in games, just with different run and pass. They went on a 75-yard drive, and it was capped with a 22-yard touchdown by JD. The offense has had all these moments like this. It wasn't unique to see them drive the ball, make consistent plays, but something felt a little different. Specifically to me, the effort. And I'm not accusing anybody of having any lack of effort during any point of these games. But what I will say is that under Leipold, there's been a certain kind of spirit to the wide receivers blocking downfield, making extra efforts, getting to their people. And on that JD touchdown, I can just remember vividly seeing Quentin Skinner just dominating this guy, completely, driving him into the ground, fighting to the last second to get that leverage point. That ended up being the space for JD to go 22 yards untouched. It just felt similar. It felt a lot like last year in terms of those extra efforts, seeing guys block down the field. The defense forced consecutive punts, tied 7-7. Kansas took over, marched another 85 yards for another score. This time on a Skinner touchdown pass for 30 yards. The big play on that drive was JD to Skinner on 3rd and 18. Something felt a little different about that. And that was only because it felt familiar. JD had a rhythm. Early on in the game, the Jayhawks were doing a lot of going out to the flats to Devin Neal, dump offs, quick routes, taking what the defense was giving him. And that just turned JD into a more rhythmic version of himself. We've seen that where he's ran the football, and that's kind of got him started. It was nice to see them put him in positions to find early success because, this was essentially the same player that we've been watching here for the last couple of years. He had the magic in his game, the elusiveness, the smarts. Late in the game, later on, he ends up throwing that pass that didn't have a chance, but he had pressure and forced a pass interference. So just his ability to feel like himself, play like himself, see things clearly. You could see all of those things clicking. And I thought that 3rd and 16, 3rd and 18 conversion to Quentin Skinner on that drive really showed like, oh, this guy's really comfortable. This is the guy that we've been used to seeing. Now they're up 14-7. Arizona State's driving again, and Melo gets a strip near midfield. Now this is the bugaboo area, right? This is the problem area for the Jayhawks. You have an opportunity to extend your lead. You're right near midfield. It's 1st and 10. you're ready to go, and then you have a right guard miss a pass blocking assignment. JD had early pressure in his face, ended up dumping it because that's the only option that he had. Second down, they gained 6 yards, put him in a 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. Weren't able to convert. Arizona State had a loaded box, and Kansas had to punt. And then it got really familiar to this year. We have really struggled in the last 2 minutes of halves. And, leading up to it, you talk about a bunch of different things that happened. But in this game, the defense and offense together had played really well up to this point. This is a defense that, without Cornell Wheeler, that has kind of struggled in the run game. Those kinds of things were happening, but they were still in control of the game, had a lead, and the defense had forced the ball back into the offense's hands. And this opportunity was on them to either chew clock, get first downs, or make it difficult. And none of those things happened. They ended up going 3 and out and punting. Arizona State was able to get a good punt return and get the ball back into a good position near midfield. And this has been that last 2 minutes, that inability to find scores, to keep possession, or to run that clock out with possession. It's just not been something that we've been able to do as a unit. And I point this out because to this point in the game, the offense had played really well, maybe as consistently as they played in a half since West Virginia, able to string together drives, get the ball in the right people's hands, no big obvious mistakes. Quarterback playing well, receivers are locked in, everything's moving the right direction. Defensively, forcing stops, forcing turnovers, getting the ball back. They had done all those things. It's 14-7. They're in a position to win this game, not only to win a game, but they're in a position to kind of take control of the game. They get the ball at halftime. That's like the double-double possession. That's where you see teams like to get greedy. It's almost like the college basketball 2-for-1. If you get an opportunity in the half, you want to end the half with the score on the ball because you'll get a chance to extend your lead when you get the ball at the beginning of the second half. Kansas offensively is top 15 in points scored in the third quarter. So it's something that they've been able to do. They've been able to control possession and get points in the third quarter of pretty much every game. And it's the only quarter that Kansas has consistently scored well and is ranked in the top 20 in any quarter. It's that third quarter. So you're looking at it thinking, oh, this is an opportunity to double up. But if the offense just could not get going, Arizona State gets the return. They're able to push the ball down and score right before halftime, that same script that we've seen. But this team wasn't discouraged. They weren't out of it. They kept pushing. They came out and did exactly what they always do in the third quarter. They were able to score, and then the game really took off. They showed the resilience, the fight, everything you wanted to see. There were 5 lead changes that late. I love that last drive by the offense with 6 minutes left. Drove the clock down to just over 2 minutes left, ended it with the touchdown. My favorite play on that drive was Devin Neal just gutting out that 3rd and 4, getting that first down. And then the great play action call by Grimes ends up with a touchdown over the middle for Quentin Skinner. And, it felt good. I know obviously there was a lot of time left, and, the defense had timeouts. They had the 2-minute warning. They had that really effective run game, and they pretty much just ran the ball down the field until they could no more. And then they were able to complete a pass and win that game. But it got me to thinking, like, what is, these in the half moments, what are the numbers saying? And honestly, it isn't great. You have a 14-7 lead against Arizona State that becomes 14-14. You have a 17-14 lead against TCU that becomes 21-17. You're tied against West Virginia 7-7. Now it's 14-7. You're up 17-6 over UNLV. Now it's 17-13. Illinois, you're up 10-6. The interception becomes 13-10. So these are all situations where Kansas had the football, had an opportunity to expand on that lead, and they were not able to do so. This team consistently plays well. So if you look at offensive time of possession, they're at 31 minutes a game in offensive time of possession. Less than a minute of that occurs on the last drive of the first half. Crunching the numbers, the average drive on the last opportunity with the football in the first half is 4 plays, 0.65 yards per play, and the average drive is lasting about 56 seconds. Just not what you're used to seeing from this offense that usually averages around 6 yards per play. It's just an area where they just cannot be themselves for whatever reason. If you go back and you look at the defense, the defense hasn't played well in those spots. So you say, what is it? Those numbers aren't good either. So essentially, in yards per play, Kansas in the last 2 minutes of the half is the worst team in the country by about 3 yards relative to, Ball State is the worst in the country in yards per play at 3 yards. And like I said, in that last drive, we're averaging 0.6 yards per play, just not what you want to see from an execution standpoint. And then defensively, in those last 2 minutes, the defense is surrendering 8 yards per play, 8.92 yards per play. 8 yards per play, sorry, which is just about as bad as it gets. That's worse than Ball State. We are pretty good defense most of the game and become a really bad defense for those last 2 minutes. And the same offensively. The offense becomes is a pretty good team for most of the game and becomes a really bad team in the last 2 minutes. So when I look at that, I say, is there room for optimism? Absolutely. Are there opportunities to believe in this team? Absolutely. When you have a veteran team, when you have 30 seniors, I don't think there's any concern about your team throwing in the towel, right? These guys are playing for something. These guys are playing for their professional football futures. You're going to see lots of effort. I get a lot of questions about, man, is the team giving up? Has a team, given up on the staff? Have they given up on each other? I get zero sense of that. I see a team that is locked in and playing for each other that has been dumbfounded by poor execution in huge moments. So I leave feeling very optimistic about the offense because what they've been able to do offensively is help JD find rhythm throws, help JD get comfortable. And I think funneling more touches to the running back in the passing game is only going to help. I mean, every time Daniel Highshaw gets a catch, it goes for 10, 12, 15 yards. He had an 18-yard catch in that game. Early in the game, JD hit Devin Neal in a swing route. This wasn't a called play. It wasn't, any excessive, let's set up the matchups. It was a swing route, and Devin just outran the linebacker for a 15-yard gain. Then he had a chance to, they used the running back as a coverage identifier a lot, but most of the time they, motioned him back into the backfield. This week they didn't. There was a play where Devin Neal was out wide, ran a stop route, easy 6 yards and a catch. So I like that element of the team because from the beginning, the offensive line's been very good and the two running backs have been very good. Those things have been pretty consistent every week. I would say the offensive line was not so great against West Virginia, but other than that, these guys have been good every week. So I like the idea of whether it be the coach or the quarterback getting the ball to the running backs in the passing game just was an effective tool. And I think it just kind of guaranteed a more consistent JD performance. And just a resilient guy. I just think about how his career has gone here, and it's been with its ups and downs. But man, his spirit, his attitude, his approach to winning seemingly improves every week, and it's hard to find an ally, when you're struggling at quarterback. Everybody wants to talk about how bad you are. They want to see who else is coming and who's behind you. This guy has handled it with so much grace. And when you watch him play, you can't help but be proud of somebody that has a type of toughness to look this season in the face, to hear his name associated with Heisman, Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, preseason, that, Big 12, all these different things that were associated with his name that have not come to fruition, have not prevented him from coming out and putting a good game together on the road against Arizona State. So I think everything offensively, you got to feel pretty optimistic about. Defensively, they're struggling with injuries. Not having Cornell Wheeler has been a big deal. And just to illustrate how big of a deal, prior to him having to go out he went out at the end of the West Virginia game. So if you go through all the way up to the West Virginia game, no running back had a carry more than 12 yards, except one carry for West Virginia. They had a 27-yard carry in that game. Prior to that, no running back had rushed for more than 12 yards on a single carry. So this rushing defense was really strong with Cornell in there, and it has a lot to do with the defensive line and his ability to find the right gap and be such a sure tackler. So he's a guy that was missed desperately. At the safety position, the Dye brothers are banged up. We saw we didn't see Jalen Dye at all. We saw Devin Dye play some, but he was sporting some heavy equipment. So they had to go to some younger players, and you got a chance to see Jalen Todd a little bit. And, I thought one standout performance for me last week was OJ Burroughs. I thought his ability to impact the run game and to play with force. I mean, he hit Scatterboo a couple times where he got up like, wait a minute, what was that? And OJ's not a big guy, but that kind of shows you his commitment to what is needed and his commitment to competing in the run game. And he is not a big guy, but man, was he everywhere. I just really appreciated the effort that he played with. And I think he's a guy that's going to continue to improve. The expectation is maybe Cornell will be back after the bye week. That would be awesome if that were true. He's a guy that they've missed, especially inside with tackling, communication, and just getting things done. So as this team sits at 1-5, the opportunity to reach some of the goals that they had set in the preseason are pretty slim. But if you look at where they are as a team that if they could figure out, they defer a lot, right? So we win the toss and we choose to kick in the first half so we can get the ball in the second half. If we could figure out that exchange and that last drive at a minute and put some things together and put together some things with some urgency, which I think this coaching staff is planning to do, that's going to be an improvement of 7 points just right there, just that one thing. So I am so optimistic about the rest of the season. They have a very winnable game against Houston. And honestly, people were so high on this team because of the schedule, and I think the schedule still falls pretty good. I think Kansas matches up well with all the teams that are waiting on the schedule. And I just honestly cannot wait to see how they answer and how they respond. This is a veteran group with a lot of guys that want to play pro football. So I expect that urge and that hunger to continue. Now, Home Field Apparel, collegiate apparel brand. They have over 150 colleges to choose from. They have your favorite team. They have Jayhawk, everything. I've got Orange Bowl t-shirts. I've got vintage t-shirts. They've got logos, alternate mascots, iconic moments, just the feel of authenticity and nostalgia that you associate with college football. Put that into your clothing with Home Field. Put that into your game day experience with Home Field. They have, like I said, I mentioned the Orange Bowl shirt, but just some of the block letter Kansas, some of the circus letter Kansas, all these different things. They've got what you need. So just go check them out. Any chance you get, they will have what you want, plenty of Jayhawk gear. If you're not a Jayhawk fan and you're tuning in, your team will be there too. Just a wide selection of availability. Go to homefieldapparel.com. That's homefieldapparel.com and use promo code PAYHEED24. That's homefieldapparel.com.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your number one source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Welcome back to the Booth Review. I am now joined by the legend, Darrell Stuckey, the Director of Player Personnel at the University of Kansas. Legend, Ring of Honor member, NFL Pro Bowler. Darrell, welcome to the show, sir.
I appreciate you, but I gotta make one correction. Director of Football Relations.
Yeah. Director of Football. See, when somebody has so many jobs, you never know what to say. So I was trying to pick up something that was all encompassing. So Director of Football Relations, how football relates to the world. And we're going to get right into it. In your introductory to this job, your quote said that you were empowered at the University of Kansas to be more than just an athlete. I love that saying, and it is absolutely true about how it's impacted your life and how you've been in your life post-career and during. So tell me some ways that you're helping student athletes create those opportunities of empowerment for themselves.
I think it first starts with, what environment are you in? Getting to know the resources you have that are available to you, and not just the items or things, but the people. And I think that just like in my title, Director of Football Relations, knowing the relationships that you have that are accessible to you in the environment you're in. Because in college, especially as a student athlete, all the adults around you that are on that campus are literally employed to be at service to help you reach your goals and help you maximize your full potential. So for me, I just try to remind them to at least know what's available to you. And you might not even know what you're interested in until you know it's available. It's almost like being a kid and somebody walks in with a new toy or a new snack you ain't never had before. You ain't ever heard of it, but because you just found out about it, you want to know what it's about or what it tastes like or what it is. So when you're in college, there's a lot of opportunities for you to figure out what is for you or is not for you. You ain't got to experience everything, but at least you got to be open to hear about it and to understand what it is and know what it's used for. So therefore, you can deduce if it's for you or not for you, or if it's worth trying or not, or if it's something you need to help amplify your life.
Yeah. So I think for my career, I think about life like football. So I think about how football impacted some of my life choices down the road or how I felt about things down the road. But I think what's been improved about college athlete development is that you guys are finding them life situations as they're playing in their real lives, whether that be volunteer opportunities in other countries, whether that be cleaning up the streets, whether that be taking lunch meetings and understanding networking. So just describe what that process was when you and I were in school into what it is ballooned into today.
I mean, when we were in school, there was no KU leagues, first and foremost. There was a Mike Harity, and then there was a Bev Swank, and then there was like a whole bunch of people, and a Carmen Thompson, a whole bunch of Thomas, a whole bunch of people that was helping. And we had SAC, but now they have a department that's literally dedicated for out of competition development, whether it's professional leadership, whether it's trying to get an internship or trying to understand different skill sets or resume building or even career fairs. So like for us, when a KU lead sends a group of students to the Dominican Republic, like they have they try to inform them of what they're going to get themselves into, but nothing is better than them immersing themselves in the culture. They went there and they built a surface for them to have games and play different sports on. But then at the same time, they had to live in like the conditions that the other people else was living in.
Yeah,
they were in a shelter, and then most of them wouldn't even call it a home or a house because it was no floor and it wasn't fully insulated. So you're exposed to the different things in the elements that are around you. Like they used to sleep in like you might as well be in a tent if the floor ain't even if it ain't a floor, like it's a shed basically. And here they are, no air conditioning.
Yeah,
outside in the water spill over there. That's the fresh, clean water over there. We don't drink that water. That's where you bathe in that.
Yeah.
And so when you have to be in that situation to get outside your comfort zone, not only do you find stuff out about yourself, but you also become more patient with those around you and the student athletes that are with you, because now you need them more than ever to help you through this, and you're not in this alone. And I think that being able to, it also makes you understand. I think it was Highshaw that like he really didn't want to come back. Like, he loved it so much. And I think his quote that I remember him saying was, "Stuck there, everybody was the same. Everybody was treated the same. Everybody was loved and appreciated, and it was peaceful."
Yeah, that's
there was
beautiful.
There was no status when the music came on. Everybody was dancing. It didn't matter what you had or didn't have, what you had on or didn't have on. Like everybody was just, they enjoyed each other.
Yeah, I love that too, because my father's from Dominican Republic, and
shout out
my people. My dad told me he didn't wear shoes unless he was going to funerals, so he was used to going up in dirt floors. You know what I mean? He grew up on a dirt floor, and what's interesting about that is like I got to learn that vicariously through him. And what I hear and feel is, oh my God, my dad was poor. Like I'm lucky to be where I am, and there's a lot of truth to that. But there's even more truth to what Daniel said, which is that there's no separation. And I was able to go back to Dominican Republic in 2022, and for my cousin's wedding. And I had the same feeling. It felt good to see people live a good life in a different way than what you thought a good life was.
Well, yeah, because you always, no matter what, you feel like you overpacked. Like,
yeah.
You're like, wait, I got options?
Yeah.
And so then, and the other side of that is like, when you think about that concept of it, like we think of it as poor here, but like in certain ways, it's living what we also would call poverty, but it's more so of not needing for anything and not wanting for anything and being content with where I'm at, but that doesn't reflect who I am. And that's where we look at the different wisdom books that were written and says, hey, learning the art of poverty enhances your ability to thrive through anything and have versatility through any conditions, because you don't rely on your status or resources or the way in which people view you. You rely on what you're inwardly available and capable of doing. And we haven't mastered that in America yet.
Yeah, that's beautiful though. Yeah, that they can have that experience, have the same experience that I had as an older man, have it when they're 20, 21, 22, 23 years old, because now they can look at the world differently, and gratitude is not something that they have to be reminded of. they have like an actual lived experience of understanding gratitude and understanding that someone can have a good life and not have the things that I have. So the next question for me is, we talk about the transfer portal and what we like and we don't like about it. What got me thinking the other day is physical readiness. When I was a young player in a program, I wasn't physically ready to play. So redshirting was something that I needed, and not only needed, kind of wanted, because I needed time and space to catch up to the game. It seems like now, especially in the program with Gildersleeve, the physical improvement is happening like that. It's happening usually within 18 months. These guys are physically ready to play, but have the same mental gap that we all had when we were young, not understanding the maturity, not understanding the commitment to the job, not understanding how important that pregame walkthrough is, not understanding how that 8:30 p.m. walkthrough on camp night is, not really having a good grasp on how valuable those reps are. How is it and what is it like to preach patience in the transfer portal era when physical ability is not the separating factor anymore because of how quickly guys are coming in ready and improving? Just describe what that process is like and why this staff has been so good at retaining talent.
I think it goes back to what you said also, like your physical ability doesn't change the psychological toll that it has. And I think that expectations are important because expectations create value and milestones. And at the end of the day, if I tell you that, hey, Brandon, I want you to come in, but when you play, I want you to be our guy. I don't want to waste reps with you playing every now and then, two reps a game, or even just playing special teams. Like I want you to be able to be a contributing factor on our offense when you get here. So to do that, I want you to be ready. I want you to be durable. I want you to come in and focus on working out, getting stronger, and redoing your composition of your body. I want you to make sure that you build your muscle up, that you lean out a little bit, build your endurance up. I said, because what we're going to ask of you is going to be more than what you had to do in high school. And what you had to do in high school was good enough, but you can take a play off and still make a heck of a play against most of the competition. Right. Now you're in the midst of a game with that gap. Most men don't stop growing until like 21. So you can grow another inch while you're here and your back can still be expanding, but you're playing against people whose back already expanded. Right. And they already stopped growing. So their growth plate is closed. Yours might still be. And the reality of that is I want you to know what's to expect when you're on the field and not be trying to catch up and not be trying to get into a rhythm of waking yourself up in the morning, or rhythm of how to go to class and not have to come home and answer to your parents about how the day went. I want you to find a rhythm so when the spring comes, you feel like you already know what's coming, and go through a whole year of breaking down film and understanding what the expectation is going into a game. Because this playbook is going to be 10 times bigger than what yours was in high school. And that's the part, being upfront, honest with them and having a vision. I think giving anybody at any level in any society a vision will speak volumes to them, because first of all, it says, I see you. Not only do I see you, but I see you thriving. And this is what we're going to do to help you get there. And this is why. And taking that time to build the relationship and explain that you see the value in them and how they can have value on this team, I think it helps tremendously, because they're being seen. I mean, regardless of what your love language is, you want to have value.
Right.
And when you give somebody value and a sense of belonging and a sense to be known, like, it goes a long way.
Yeah. And I mean, you can feel that throughout the program. And I think it's just a testament to, preaching patience is different when you're talking about physical readiness. And I think you guys have done a great job of that. And I think it is more challenging than it appears to be on the outside of it. The other part of it has been NFL success, in this early start. It started with a couple guys getting some looks, making some camp rosters, and expanded this year to a couple guys getting drafted. Guys are already contributing early on in the season. This is a team right now that currently has 30 seniors. And a lot of people text me and they say, man, BMac, are they letting go of the rope? Do they believe? I don't sense any of that. And a lot of the reason is because these guys want to play pro football. You're a pro football player. So you talk to, the different scouts and everybody that's coming through and see. So first, just talk to the players currently on the roster. their drive, what they're motivated by, what they're trying to do, and how pro football kind of ties into that.
The reality of it is, I'm gonna be honest, like most pro scouts want to see you on your worst day. Like, they may not admit it, but they can turn the film on and find all your highlights.
Right.
But when they come and see you, can they witness you on your worst day? If you're a receiver, can they witness you when your QB may not be throwing the ball perfect and you have to manage and handle that on the sideline and you work through that? Or you might have dropped a couple passes. How are you going to respond? Are you going to lock in into the run game and block the heck out of people and still affect the game the same? A scout wants to see you affect the game regardless of circumstances. And so our players are built to compete regardless of circumstances.
Yeah.
And right now, we're playing. There's some great entertaining games and they're playing some good football, but it's not happening in the timely manner on this play or that play that makes or breaks us. And right now, and they're hungry.
Yeah.
And I imagine how angry.
Right.
And the reality is they haven't been in this position before.
Right.
They haven't been in this position before. This class that's here now, who's because of COVID, been here for 5, and a few, maybe 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, they haven't been in this position before where there was actually expectation on them before the season started, and they had what it took, and there was a few plays that made them come up short. Because last year, we won a few of those.
Yes.
Quite a few of those that were close like that. Or started off slow and made a way and found a way to make it work at the end. And now to be on the other edge of that. And when we were doing that, when we were winning those, the other person on the other side of that was West Virginia, was losing a lot of those that same year. And then they found a way to beat us in the midst of that this year. And that's tough. And they know it's about execution and the little things. And so they're locking back in. And they're going to attack.
I couldn't agree more.
They're attacking the second half of the season like it was the only season they had. And it's a short-term memory right now. And, well, we're built for that. We're built to look at our habits. And if it's not the habits, then, okay, maybe we're not executing it the right way. Well, yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, that's a feeling I've gotten, man. Yeah, and I think that's a driver, right? Like you mentioned, how you respond, who's watching, the eyes. So part of it is, like, we want to win for the University of Kansas, but when you get to this level, you want to play in the NFL. It's just part of it. You know,
always at our practices too. So like they
all. So I see that. I see those guys still wanting to make those futures and still wanting to do it with Kansas on their chest. So I don't have any doubts about their investment and what's going to happen in the back half of this season. And like you mentioned, like this isn't a bad football team. This isn't a team that's even playing bad. It's a team that's not been at its best at the moments that it's needed to be, and it ended up taking some losses. But I think that can turn just as much as it turned last year. You think about, 21-21 at Iowa State last year.
Yeah,
they run that option. They pull back, hit LJ for the touchdown. It's 28-21 now. Oh, we need to stop. Got to stop. We need a field goal. Got a field goal. Won the game. And sometimes it is, or excuse me, not a field goal, first down. Won the game. Sometimes it's that simple. And that same process that played out can be repeated if you're focused on the details. And I think this team's going to be locked in on the details, locked in on the freshness of having a week off. The other part I want to talk about is, there wasn't a lot of NFL attention in here before Leipold arrived. There just wasn't a lot of success to.
Nor was there any anger about us losing a game.
Now it's like, man, I just love to watch my team. Now these guys suck.
Yeah, they're actually angry. Like that's also the joy of it is like, our fans are actually angry with losing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, like I encourage all of that. I encourage all the passion because that's what college football is. Now, as an NFL guy, having a chance to meet all those scouts, just talk about how you're able to use your relationships and your, your NFL currency, right? Your ability, your Walter Payton Man of the Year nominations, what you were in San Diego as a community member, the different staffs and people that you work with that have risen to power now. Just describe how you could be an advocate for information for players and also information to the NFL side of it.
It's a great question. The biggest thing is when the scouts do come here, they always look at me like, they walk past my office like, why does his name sound familiar? Because they all scouted me at one point.
Yeah, no question.
But no, just kind of bring some clarity and some perspective to our players. I mean, because it's a different expectation. I mean, even Kenny, talking to Kenny now, it's the same way. Or Mason Fairchild when I went talk to him last week, and like the realization of like, because even when I would talk to Kenny when he was here, and he would ask me something, and I would say something, he'd be like, "What? How does that even like?" I was like, "Well, I'm not talking to you for here. I'm talking to you for future. Like the expectation is the expectation, and you don't lower your standard because of the level you're playing at." And he looked at me, and I was like, "My expectation is if I'm trying to get to here, then here is my expectation. I'm not going to bring my expectation down to where the level I'm at right now. If I'm trying to get to here,
right,
my expectation has to be here. I have to train my body like I'm here. I have to train the way I think like I'm here because I know I want to be here. I can't give myself grace because I'm down here. No, I strive to be up here in this expectation. And while I'm there, I have to ask myself, realistically, is it tangible? Do I have the resources? Do I have the frame? Do I have the work ethic? All right, I do. So let me stay right here. Now, if you don't have the work ethic, that's what brings you down. If you don't have the work, like the ability to actually have the discipline and the resources to do it, that's what brings you down. But your mindset shouldn't bring you down.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was not just share my story, but find their story and how their story drives them. Because my journey was my journey. It worked out for me, but it still has a lot to do with timing, not just talent, but timing, placement, being in the right system. For most people being in the right defense or offense.
Yeah.
For some, it doesn't matter. Like, I probably was one of those that didn't matter. It's like, just because of the way in which we play defense at KU, like we were in a quarters defense, which every team in some space, except a few of them that played 2-man or Tampa 2 or whatever, they still play man-to-man. But you can still make a quarters defense transferable to those defenses because we still play cover 2. Yeah. But it's hard if you only play man-to-man to learn how to play zone when you go to the NFL. That's dang near impossible because there's so many man habits that you got to break, and good luck. Right. And you see a lot of great DBs, especially out of the SEC, that get away with playing a lot of man that struggle when they get to the NFL because of that, unless they're in a man scheme defense. But most defenses can't stay man scheme because then you get them quarterbacks that take off on you and get your back.
Yeah. And now there is a lot of them.
But it isn't a lot of them. You can correct me because I know you're buff. There's not a lot of them in the SEC though.
No. That's one of the interesting things about the SEC is like,
man.
There's not. They don't have like now this year and last year. They had Jaden Daniels last year. He was one of the few. Milrow this year. Like you said, it's one of the few. It's not on every team. There isn't a guy. I mean, in the Big 12, it seems like every night we got to deal with somebody.
Somebody walking off with the ball.
I'm like, oh no, not another fast quarterback. Yes, man, it's tough, and it just stresses your defense out in ways that are hard to describe. It's like this would be a normal play if this guy wasn't 6'2", 200 pounds, running 4.4. Now I got to get to the line of scrimmage, break down, and put myself in a position to tackle a guy at a speed that I'm not really ready for. So it is something to keep in mind, and especially with fit, right? Because I always want to tell my NFL story because when I was growing up and when I was coming up and what I hear even now is the story is always about the guy that had everything and blew it with the choices that he made off the field. And the story is not often enough about the guy who did everything right, made all the right choices, and still didn't make it. And that's what happened. I was one of the percentage guys that needed a fit. I needed a system that fit my style of play. Now I got hurt. And honestly,
we're in the era where they were trying to redefine the fullback too.
Yeah, they were changing.
You had the skill set to be redefined fullback. You just happened to be only 5'11".
You're right. I needed to be 6'4", 300 pounds. That would have worked out great. Thank God. Give me some size and height, and I would have been good. But I do think it's important that everything can go right. Everything in your career can go right. It still might not work out. And I want people to keep that in mind. And that's a full circle statement for me, because that's what the value of what you guys do in player development is. Because once you do in that NFL journey, it's not your choice often. No. It's almost never your choice. So then the question is, what are you going to do with your life? What do you even like? And for me, it was, I have no idea what I like. I have no idea what I want to do. I've never had a job. I've never, my dad was one of those dudes that was like, hey, man, your job is to dream. You go to school, you have fun. I'll take care of that. You don't need to work. You got plenty of time to work, right? So I didn't even have a job, let alone a internship. So I had to learn everything from the ground up. It's beautiful that you guys are putting these people in a position to succeed. When that call comes and says, no, thank you, that these guys say, okay, let me go back to that foundation of my trip to the Dominican Republic, of my internship, of my meetings I took that summer to get to know other, football players and what they were doing with their lives. So I just think there's a big kudos and a lot of love to you guys for being able to establish that and to be able to see good things come out of NIL and the expansion of player involvement, because there's just not enough talked about how NIL can also help expand these opportunities. I remember, I can't remember the linebacker's name right now, but a guy a couple of years ago, you said he had his own business, using that NIL, and not a business where he used investments, but using that money to start a business. And I think what's his name? Zoe?
Yeah, it was Zoe. Yeah,
I think that's awesome.
Dealership. He had a couple of different things going on.
Yeah. So these guys are having a chance to build enterprise. And the last thing I want to talk about your football relations is alumni relations, something that's over the last year has impacted me and a ton of guys a lot. And, I did a podcast with Dave Wimbush the other day. I'm a Lawrence guy. I grew up watching this dude, big fan of his. And now we're friends solely because of you and what you were able to do in connecting these dots. So just talk about, I could go on forever. I think about my two tent poles as getting a chance to get to know Wimbush, and kind of hang out with him and us to build a relationship, that running back fraternity, brotherhood kind of thing. And then also a guy like Chris Hughes.
I was all state running back, man. Can I be in that fraternity too? What's up, bro?
No, you think you're with the safeties. You go hard. You and Courtney Smith. We'll throw you with all the guys. Luke Arndt. All the safeties that you get down with, we'll let you have them. But also get to know guys like Chris,
bro. I told it to Rock. Man, Gino recruited me as a running back, bro.
Now, I never saw that, but I believe you.
Bro,
I remember that.
He might have said as an athlete. He didn't specifically say running back, but he said as an athlete.
That sounds.
He let me choose, bro. And I saw you in the room. I saw Clark Green. I saw John Cornish. I saw they was recruiting Jake. And then I also saw John Randall. You said I could play safety?
Let me slide over that safety room right quick.
I mean, I was only like 170. I was like, I don't know if we could be in that room, Coach.
Just tell me quickly about one of your favorite alumni stories and what it's been like kind of cultivating alumni relations with this KU football staff.
Surprisingly, one of my favorite ones is happened probably like my second summer. And it was with the players from the 70s. I grew up in inner city, Kansas City, and I'm sitting there with Gary Laster, who was a walk-on and also was in the military in the early 80s, late 70s. And he introduced me to Laverne Smith, who also introduced me to Greg Smith, and they were like, "Hey, we think about going down to this this cabin or this in Lacine, Kansas, with Mike Bill and David Lawrence." Was like, "Yeah, we might go down there." then this guy named Woody, and then this guy named Chris, and I'm like, so you guys are gonna let me go down there? You guys know I'm not from the 70s, right? He's like, yeah, but these guys would love to hear from you, like in your new position, and I think these guys really, now, not known to me, the minority players of their time had never went there with them, so they always had this trip together with like a dozen or so of the players from the 70s, but they never knew that their minority players would be interested and wanting to go. And though this was going to be the first year, and I asked them, and they were like, "Yeah, okay, we'll go if you go." I'm like, these are your teammates. These ain't my teammates.
Yeah.
And so we go down there, and we don't know what to expect. And the first night down there, oh man, Mike had cooked, and Gary knows Mike really well. And Gary's vouched for Mike. He's like, nah. I don't know, man. I usually cook. I usually do the cooking. He goes, but Gary goes, but I trust Mike. So Mike did this process on these ribs. And he pulled these ribs out the freezer. And all everybody of ethnic in that room was like,
what's going on here?
We like our ribs. So what happens is he pulls these and he puts them on the grill. He goes out there, puts them on a charcoal grill, and he wakes them up. We know what that means. He wakes them up. Man, he came back in with these ribs, man. Let's just say when you picked anything up, it was just a bone. Just a bone. The meat was still right there. The meat was still on the plate. And he said the process is he cooks it first and he smokes it first, slowly smokes it. But then he puts it in a freezer before it cools down. And he said the freezer locks in the moisture and it locks in all that goodness, all the flavor. So then when you wake it up, it just falls off the bone. It separates it from the bone automatically already. And he's like, he always does it that way. He never cooks the ribs and eats them immediately. He always cooks and freezes, He'll smoke them during the week and freeze them and then eat them on the weekend. But, and then the next day, this guy that came in from Seattle, he goes by the nickname of Woody, decides he's going to cook us all gumbo. So then again, they're like, oh, hell no. Yeah, when I say he cooks these 2 giant pots, big pots, and he brought like fresh vegetables from Seattle. He brought it from Seattle with him.
Yeah.
Celery and all. He's in there cutting it up. And y'all were looking at each other. And man, some of the best gumbo I've ever eaten in my life. He had a spicy and then he had a regular.
Yeah.
We destroyed that. And then we were out on the back patio because I think the NBA Finals was on at the time. And about a dozen elk come around the corner and walk through the water right in front of us. And so it was a great experience because it was the first time I've been around that many men who played for KU in a remote area. We couldn't go hunting because it rained the whole time we were there.
Yeah.
So we didn't end up going hunting, but we able to visit and talk and joke. And I ended up being paired with a player that probably would have never met that act like he didn't know how to play spades, and we ran a table. We had one of their teammates show up out of nowhere. It was straight out of Jeepers Creepers. Like, I kid you not. It is beat down random truck. And the funny thing is they've been telling stories about this guy this whole time. And this guy randomly shows up in the middle of the day. He don't have no phone. He don't have no GPS. And he only been to that farm or that ranch probably like twice. And he drove neither time. And I looked up and when we were playing spades, like, why is there a truck at the gate? And so Mike goes out there to check on it, and he goes, "It's Billy." And I'm like, wait, how did he get here? And we're all in the house looking at each other like, how did he get here? He didn't call. He didn't tell us he was coming. How did he find us?
Right.
Yeah, he showed up, man. It was a great opportunity. It was a great time, like, because it also made me realize that the camaraderie never changes. And what they went through then was all the same, and they all felt the same way about their coach at the time, but they never shared it with each other. It was this beautiful thing of them unearthing this and reliving this moment in their life that was such a big moment, and they had no idea they were more alike than they thought because it was an opportunity to share it then in the 70s the way it is now. And it was a beautiful thing, them breaking bread and eating. They really enjoyed it. And that was awesome. It was so awesome, man. It was, and that gave me so much joy to know, like, this is why.
Yeah.
We got to build the intercontinuity, the intergenerational continuity between races, no matter what, because we can lose those stories or the feelings or the camaraderie because our stadium was over 100 years old and we just now tore it down. Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful, man.
We have a history. We just haven't told it yet.
Yeah. And I think that's, my favorite thing about what you've been doing. And, these are not things that we would see, on the news or on TV, but it's the work that's required. And we are so thankful for you and what you do for the alumni and how you keep us connected and how I've been able to build new friendships with people I would not have known otherwise, thanks to your efforts. not only that, thanks to your efforts with growing the players, helping them understand who they are and who they want to be. And we'll keep pushing this Jayhawk thing forward. And I am super excited for the second half of the season. And we'll be back with another booth review next week as we get ready to face Houston on homecoming. That's Darrell Stuckey. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir.